Welcome to Over It. It's Donna Gilman, and I'm here today with Hannah Harvester. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you.
Hannah. Hannah is very, very special to me. Hannah, the blessing that is Hannah, came into my life and my son's life maybe 8 years ago,
I don't know.
9 years ago. I'm going with 9 years almost.
Okay.
And you answered an ad. I was looking for a part-time sitter for my kiddo, who was like maybe 5 at that time.
He was like 7.
Or 7. You showed up, and I liked you right away. And one of the ways I knew you were for us is I showed you this little area in our house that we call the Gnome Nook, which is where all the little houses and little gnomes, little ceramic gnomes live in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And my son at that time used to love to paint and repaint the little wooden houses and decorate for every holiday. And you noticed the Gnome Nook. And literally, I saw a tear form in your eye. And I was like, this is the woman for us. If you can shed a tear over the cuteness and magic of the Gnome Nook, I literally knew you were exactly the right person.
Yep, I remember that. I remember my eyes filling with tears.
Your eyes filling with tears. And since that time, it's been quite a journey. I mean, we have traveled together.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
With Avi to all kinds of places. And you're our neighbor, and you live right down the street from us, and you have a magical art studio that's an old tiny little cabin that's right on the river on stilts, like something out of a storybook. And it's got a wood burning stove, and it's so awesome. And that's where you are right now.
Yep, that's right.
So there's so many amazing qualities that go into being Hannah Harvester. I can't even begin. All right, I'll begin to enumerate some of them. You're an artist. You're a painter. You are a clown.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I am.
Yes, you like to clown. You are a clown. You have a clown persona, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
You run our local eco grief group, which I definitely want you to talk about. You also are a beloved nanny to many families, and so many things to talk about. So, Hannah, where would you like to start?
You know, Donna, I've been thinking as you've been talking, and I've been thinking about the title of your podcast. Over It. And we talked about talking about eco grief, and I was like, I don't really know quite how that fits into this theme of over it, because like I'm not over my eco grief. But but as you've been talking, I realized like what I am over and what it took me a while to get over. But what I am totally now over is like trying to present like a unified self that makes sense to the world, that I think like people will approve of and like give me the stamp of like success. Like I think for the longest time I was like, I need to have a cohesive story. I'm supposed to have a career. It's all supposed to make sense. And like also I need to be really good at it, and I need to like be making a certain amount of money, and I need to look good doing it. And over the past maybe 5 or 6 years, I've been like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care about that anymore. I don't care about like having a story. I'm not embarrassed to say like I'm a nanny. I'm proud of it. And I'm not embarrassed to say like, yeah, I'm an artist, and like I make some of my money that way, but not all of it. And I do these other things, and I also do this, and I do this too. And yeah, I think I've gotten to the place where like, if I'm taking care of myself, putting a roof over my head, then I get to contribute however I want, and I get to use my time, however feels best. So But where to start? I don't know.
Well, first of all, I just love that. I just love that that's where you're at. And I feel like that's a really powerful thing for other women to hear. It's like, it doesn't have to look any which way. And that you've like moved through whatever embarrassment or shame or self-judgment or internalized judgments from society that told you you're not doing it right, or you're not doing it in the right order, or you're not legitimate if you're not making all your money from art, and you're not legitimate if you are helping nourish other people's children. And I just think that's really, really powerful, because there's so much that you are. There's no need to focus on what you're not, right? I mean, there's so many ways that we identify in life. Like, I'm not married, I'm not fully employed, I'm not good at this, I'm not, there's a way, and you're not saying any of that.
Right. I was internally for a while.
Right.
And I think partly it's just like getting sick of that, being like, I'm so tired of judging myself or like accepting these, ideas I have about what other people may be thinking. I'm just like sick of it. I'm going to stop.
I think that is awesome. And is it okay for me to say you just had a really pivotal birthday?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. I turned 40.
You turned 40. Yeah.
Yep. I celebrated by hiring a brass band.
Yay!
Who played in the street.
I wish I
had
had
a dance party.
I was sick for your party, or else I would have loved to be there. But yes, you hired a brass band that played in the street, and you had an awesome dance party. And lots of people were abuzz about your party and said it was super fun. And of course, we live in a tiny town. Some people who follow the podcast may have heard me talk about it. There's like 1,400 people, maybe max, that live in our town. And rumors will fly about the craziest things. So one of the rumors that flew after your party was I bumped into a neighbor, a mutual friend who'd been at your party, who said to me, "Oh, did you hear that Hannah got married?" I said, "No, Hannah's not married. I'm quite sure of it. I think she would have told me." And she said, "Oh, no. She is married now." And she was really adamant. But and then there was another rumor that you were seen walking, shocker, with
I was seen walking out.
Yeah, you were seen walking about town with a dude, and there were all kinds of rumors flying about maybe
that did happen. I did walk with a man,
but was not
once
actually a husband or boyfriend. No, but rumors will fly around this town. Would you say that you are proud to be single?
I would say that I'm proud. I'm definitely glad to be single. And I will like occasionally be like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be married or in a relationship. And then I'll be like, oh, wait, but everyone my age that I know is getting divorced. So I feel like I've successfully avoided divorce.
You have. You've been very successful at avoiding divorce and very successful at getting burnt out, let's say, with motherhood. Because you're kind of smart. Like you dip in, you cultivate wellness and joy and creativity in children, and then you know when to get the heck out of there.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, like, I do want to raise a child. I don't want to have a biological child, although I absolutely have the biological instinct, but I don't want to bring another child into the world, especially as there are many who need parents. I don't know, I don't know when that may lie in my future, but I'm very happy that I found a way to have nurture children as a major part of my life, without being a mother.
Yeah. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about what that brings into your life, taking care of children?
Oh, man.
How you bring yourself to that as well.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that I sort of came to this as like as like my job. It was sort of by accident. I was always a babysitter as a kid and as a teenager and in college. And then there were about 10 years where I was really serious about visual art making, and I was trying to find the balance of what I do for income and kept doing kind of office type jobs or more like intense education teaching jobs and being burnt out by those and not having the energy to do as much artwork as I would have liked. And eventually I came to babysitting and then nannying. I mean, they're the same thing, but nannying, I guess, implies more time and a longer lasting relationship with the family. Um, and I was initially like kind of embarrassed about it. Like I'm an adult, I'm in my 30s, like I'm supposed to have a career or whatever. But after however many years it's been, 7 or so, I am so grateful that I've come to this as like my main income stream and really the main way I spend my time, because it's so nourishing for me to be with these beautiful children who are filled with wonder, filled with excitement about just being in the world. And I get to spend my days taking walks, pointing out like the beauty of the world around us, which is, also kind of what I do with my art, helping children learn to talk, and like, but really just like, I really feel like I get to be in the real world as my job. And
Mm.
you can't get too cynical when you're with babies and very young children, because you're like, these are just babies and very young children. Like, you can't just give up on on the world, on the state of the world, on life when you're nurturing little babies. So I feel really, really lucky. I find it like very nourishing for me. I keep a gratitude journal, and so often like the moments that I'm reflecting on at the end of the day are like a beautiful moment, often like out in nature with a child. And yeah, I'm really happy I was able to find this like this work-life balance, I guess, and that I get to do this.
Yeah, you talk about the real world as defined by, in part, your connection to nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like when I've worked in offices and schools and stuff, I've felt trapped. And I like often like either there are no windows or there's like a window and I'm like looking out the window like the world is out there and I'm
Okay.
trapped in here.
Right, right.
And so yeah, it's like I'm out in nature, or I'm like in a house, like doing the things of life, making food, whatever, changing diapers. Like it's real, it's concrete. Like I was also in going down an academic path for a while. And to me, it felt very, because it was like very abstract and like, what am I really doing here? As I write about a very specific cultural phenomenon or whatever, like, what am I really accomplishing? To me, it felt like maybe at the end of the day, nothing. Whereas, doing the concrete things of life, caring for a child, there's no question about the usefulness of that and the worthiness of it.
And there's also like an immediate feedback loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say
Yeah.
immediate gratification. Sometimes it's less gratifying, but there's an immediate sense of impact, right, in the
Yeah.
moment.
Mm-hmm.
And both ways, right? The child on you, you and the child, and the integration of your art as well into the ways that you care for children. And that was a big part of the connection between you and my son,
Mm-hmm.
was the creation of art.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm very into like creating environments that are like low stimulation and just like, even if it's babies and we're not doing art, it's just like, let's just be here and take in what's here. I
Mhm.
don't I'm not like showing kids like movies or like, sometimes I'll play some music, but it's not like all day there's something coming at them, because that we already have so much of that.
Yes.
I have to, like, I work hard to limit what is coming in at me, and it's still a lot. And I know
Right.
that the babies and the kids have stuff coming at them all the time already. So I think for me, part of the reason that I make art is like, it for me, it's often I'm outside painting what we call en plein air. And I'm just like there in the place, experiencing being there, and it just fully experiencing that. So even if, yeah, even if I'm not like doing an art project with a kid, I try to kind of have that experience, create it for them, have it with them.
I really love your relationship to art because it feels really inclusive. Sometimes you'll set up an easel like right in our little, I guess we'll call it a downtown. I mean, that's where the library is in the inn. And you'll just set up there and you'll let everybody know you're going to be there like certain days and times. And people can just stop and converse with you about what you're painting and how. And so it kind of, instead of making it this hoity-toity, elitist exclusive experience, it's this very inclusive, accessible experience. And you also run workshops and classes for kids and adults, right, out of your
Mhm.
art studio.
Yeah.
How do you feel your relationship to art has changed through the years, to your art?
That's a good question. I think that has also changed a lot. I think so I've always drawn. I was the child in our family who was drawing all the time, and we have quite a history in our family of artists. So it's sort of, I was encouraged in that and like given a lot of praise for it. And I think, but didn't actually pursue it as like my main pursuit. But it was always there. Um, and for a long time in my young adulthood, I think I had a lot of angst
Mhm.
around art. Like, this is something maybe I was supposed to have pursued more seriously. I'm letting my talent go. I'm not developing this talent. I'm not reaching my potential. I should have gone to art school. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Um, and so then I was in my late 20s already when I started painting and like learning to paint, and kind of answered the angst in that way. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to learn to paint, because my family was painters and I had never like really learned to paint. And I was like, oh, I can actually just learn how to paint. Like, it's fine. You just go to a class and learn how to
Mhm.
paint. And and that felt great, and like the learning curve was really steep and fast, and I felt like, oh, I'm I'm like, finally, I finally found my calling. Like, I really felt great. And then, and then it was like a lot of up and down of, okay, now, but how do I make space for this in my life and still pay for my life? And there was a period of time where I was really trying to make art my income. And that became very stressful. I was like putting a lot of demands on my art to provide for me, and I didn't really know how to do that. So then there were a lot of years of like sort of a punitive approach, where like, I should be making art and I'm not, because I'm too tired, because I'm like doing these other jobs that are taking all my energy. And so then also when I make the time to do it, I better do something really good.
Talk about pressure. I remember, years of seeing you working on certain commissions
Oh yeah,
and
commission.
just really struggling, I think, to find your joy in it, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, commissions can be tricky like that. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I also come out the other side of that whole less healthy relationship with my art. Probably through like reading self-help stuff for artists and like, like helpful podcasts and things like that. That's just like realizing that well, first of all, I had to like move things around so I wasn't trying to make my income from my art.
Right.
And that has helped a lot. And then that's super freeing. And finding the job that works. So that was a big part of it, finding the nannying as the support, as my like financial support.
Right.
And then yeah, and now I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna try to be really regular about it, like paint and draw as often as possible and not put any pressure on each painting session or each drawing. Like it's all practice.
Right.
And occasionally like a piece comes out really well, and those are the ones that you frame or show, and the other ones are in service to those. And when I teach, I really try to emphasize this because I think a lot of people have this idea that like they're supposed to be able to make good art.
Well, the
And like no.
perfectionism, right? The pressure of perfectionism is
Yeah,
so intense,
yeah,
right? And that's been a great learning. And you've tried to demonstrate that to my son, who has real perfectionistic tendencies of just like, well, look at how many paintings I've done. I just
right.
do them one after another, after another, after another, or whatever you're doing, pastels or charcoals. And now this one, I'm pretty happy with this one.
Hmm.
But this is part of the process. And so don't get overly precious about every single iteration, which is just such a lovely life lesson,
Hmm. Yeah, and
right?
it seems obvious once you've learned it, but like it took me like well into my 30s to finally get that.
It's creating different muscle, isn't it? The muscle of
Yeah.
creation and letting go.
Acceptance.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
acceptance, creation and letting go, creation and letting go, creation and letting go. Yeah, and
Yeah.
acceptance.
Yeah.
So,
Over It is proudly sponsored by the Couples Center of the Pioneer Valley, offering therapy and coaching to couples, individuals, and families with relationship issues. Online services are offered 7 days a week. Contact us at 413-570-0067 or at pioneervalleycouplestherapy.com. We also offer private in-person intensives and retreats.
as I hear the rain, which we've had so much rain, actually, our little town was named the wettest place in the United States in the month of July, and it really hasn't really stopped raining for long.
United States and Canada.
Oh, yeah, United States and Canada,
With
our little
21
town
inches, 21 inches as opposed to a average 4 inches for
in
July.
July. Yeah,
Mhm.
21 inches of rain in July, and it's still raining, which makes me think about eco grief. Can you speak to a little bit about how you came to your own grief, about the environment and your inspiration for starting this eco grief group?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the grief has been there as long as I can. I mean, since childhood. When I think it was like in Highlights magazine actually that I read about global warming, and the
Mhm.
greenhouse effect was how they were talking about it at the time. I was probably like 10. And and then since then in school, just learning about these environmental problems and climate change, and all the way through college, you know, learning about these things where you would least expect it. Like I remember it was geology class that like I first saw our professor put the hockey stick graph where it shows the amount of carbon emitted by humans for like the last 10,000 years, and then right in the last like 200 years it starts to go up and it gets faster and faster and it goes up straight.
Yeah.
And it was like the last day of geology class. He put this on the board. We were like charting it out. And, and it exactly coincides with human population. And you look at that graph and you're like, oh, we're fucked.
Mhm.
And this like old professor put this on the board, and then it was like, so like good luck with that, like, so he didn't. And all through school we were taught these things, told these things, and not given any emotional support around it, or like hopeful stories, or like here's what people are doing to address this. Like here it's just like, here's the really bad news, kids. And I really took it in. Like I completely took it in, and it's all true. None of it's false. It's all true. And I have a very good imagination, so it was very easy to extrapolate what this all meant for the world around me, for nature, for my own future, and for the future of everyone I knew and people I don't know all over the world. And it's horrifying if like, it's horrifying. And it was so horrifying to me that I tried to not think about it as much as possible. And I would think about it. But, in order to like go about your life, you can't be thinking about this stuff all the time. So, I wouldn't be able, like if a climate change story were to come on the radio, like often I'd just have to turn it off. Because I'd be like, I know what this story is going to say. It's going to say that things are worse than we thought. And that scientists have now found that things are moving faster than we thought. And this species is going extinct. And this scenario is like getting out of control. And I can't handle that. So the problem was that this was like this big looming thing kind of in the back of my mind, or like as I'm like moving forward, like coming to these much healthier attitudes about my artwork and like my self-worth and stuff, and that's all going really well. And at the back of my mind, it's like, oh, but I'm living on a dying planet and may not even have a future. Like, what am I supposed to be doing with that? So even as I'm making all this progress with all this other stuff, I'm like, but shouldn't I be like an environmental activist? Like, shouldn't I be doing something about this? But I can't, because I can't go there because it's too upsetting. Like I'm not going to go to an activist meeting because I don't want to hear the bad news again and get upset and like not be able to deal with it. So where is this all leading? Well, I finally brought this up with my therapist, not that much more than a year ago. And I had brought it up with other therapists, and they were mostly fairly dismissive, and they were older white men, for what that's worth. And this therapist is like a woman, not that old, a mother. And I was like going on and on. It was about the extinction of the monarch butterflies, or they're now on the endangered list. And I was kind of talking about all this stuff and how confused I am about what I'm supposed to be doing about my, like, I'm doing all this planning for my future, but like, I'm really confused about what that even means. And, I have these children in my life that I love. And anyway, I looked up at the screen because we were on Zoom, and my therapist was crying. And my therapist said, I hear you. I feel exactly the same way, and I have nothing for you. I don't know what to say. And that was really affirming.
Yeah.
And I was like, for some reason, that gave me the permission to be like, you know what, I'm going to treat this as though it's as important as it is, and stop relegating it and being like, no, I need to like do my work. I need to like whatever. No, I'm going to make time for working on this emotional stuff myself, because no one's going to help me. That was my sort of idea. And then I found out that there are people who there are resources for working with your emotions. Especially in the last just 2 or 3 years, there's like a huge crop of books that are really wonderful. There are like online courses and virtual groups and like real life groups. And it's all trying to address what's been this gap, which there's been this missing element in all the education around environmental and climate stuff, which is that there hasn't been any emotional support for the fact that like the information is your planet is like in dire danger and the people in charge aren't doing enough to help. Like,
Well, on all the feelings of helplessness, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also, I think the cognitive dissonance that we all
Yeah.
have to live with of like, yeah, oh yeah, I'm planning to like, I don't know, like renovate my basement, or I'm going to maybe I'll buy this little pop-up camper. Oh, but wait a minute, should I be like, stocking food away, or what, how should I be planning to save some money for my kids' college? Oh, wait a minute, are they gonna be able,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much cognitive dissonance. Should I be recycling? I've been told recycling isn't, they don't really do anything with these plastic bottles. It's all a scam,
Mm-hmm.
all of this that we have to sort of contend with.
Right.
And so this inspired you to start your own eco grief group.
Yeah, basically once I had realized the main helpful thing that I got from the reading that I did and the other work that I did on my own with my emotions is like, these emotions make sense.
Yep.
They are shared by a lot of people.
Right.
They're there for a reason. And in fact, like we should be honoring these painful emotions because we have them because of our love for the world.
Right.
And and I was like, you know what? Now that once I'd worked through my emotions, I felt like I was ready to actually engage in activism. And that has helped tremendously in terms of my own feelings of powerlessness and helplessness, because when you're actually doing stuff to help, you feel less helpless. And yeah, I wanted to help other people who might feel alone with those difficult emotions, also be able to process them, also have a place to talk about them. So that was the inspiration for the support group. And I'm now working with a friend, another local friend who's a climate aware therapist, and we're putting together what are called climate cafes, which is basically a similar thing. It's a facilitated space to talk about these emotions, and we're going to be bringing them to local libraries. So trying to make them more accessible, because for the past year I've been sort of doing it in my studio and in my home, and Conway isn't the most easily accessible town locally. So
No,
yeah,
it's
trying
not.
to expand it a little bit more, make it a little more accessible.
Right. And in terms of, the advocacy work that you're doing, I know oftentimes it's really overwhelming for people to think about where to even start.
Yeah, that's true. And it's true for me too. And I still haven't like totally figured out where, like, is the climate emotion stuff, the eco emotion stuff, is that just my contribution, or do I need to be doing more? And so I've been, I get on the monthly Climate Action Now call, which is like all the climate and environmental groups have sort of a consortium.
Okay.
And you're kind of kept abreast that way of what's going on with all the different groups. So I've been active with our local Extinction Rebellion, doing, having some art builds in my studio, and I've also been very involved with like the local, like the native plants movement, which is a very fun and exciting and energizing way to be involved, because native plants are better for our soil, they're better for carbon sequestration, they're better for our pollinators. Like, it is helping, and it's another like concrete thing. Like, you plant a plant that wasn't there before, and I've like replaced a particular lawn with, natives. And it's like, on the one hand, yes, it's a drop in the bucket, but on the other hand, like, there are actual insects that are going to not die because of this. And also, it's like the drop in the bucket, it's also like a growing movement. So, you're part of that. It's part of changing social norms. Like, it's not that unusual anymore for someone to not have like a manicured lawn in our area. Like,
Right.
it's getting more and more common to have this more like natural, whatever, rewilded lawn. And it's fun.
Right.
It's fun,
Oh,
and you're outdoors, and your hands are in the dirt, and it feels very
it's community
good.
building too, which is
Right.
also like an earth loving activity. You love your fellow
Right. I mean, our
humans.
local Pollinate Conway group, I've worked
Yeah.
with them to like do some, community projects, and yeah, all of that stuff, getting involved with those. It's mostly like plugging into um groups or activities or endeavors that already exist, and just helping a little bit,
Yeah.
you
And also
don't have
I
to like
always
start a new thing.
the cultivation of the love of nature in children to
Right.
me is just essential.
Right. Yeah, I do see that as like a part of my contribution.
Hmm.
And certainly, like, of course, like, I don't know, I think, a lot of people who've come to the support groups are activists, and they have to struggle with like still feeling like their efforts aren't enough at the end of the day. And I think that's just one of the emotions that you just have to accept,
Right.
and like constantly remind yourself, yes, it's not enough, and it's it's what I can do,
Right.
and
How
it's not
does
all on me.
how does sadness and how can sadness and hope be adjacent to one another? How can grief and hope be adjacent? And how can we honor sadness but still act in hope, right? And not just throw
Yeah,
up our hands.
I think for a lot of people, it's like acting despite of not having hope, acting
Acting
anyway,
despite of not having hope,
you
right?
know, um, or like not knowing there's no guaranteed result, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And yeah, I think a lot of people, I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily hopeful that this like great turning is going to come around, and we're going to like turn climate change around, which, by the way, we could do. Like, climate will stabilize
Yeah.
if we stop emitting and start
Mhm.
drawing down carbon. Like, it's not like
Yeah.
we're not doomed yet.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not hopeful that that's going to be the outcome. Like, but I don't know what's going to happen. And it might be the outcome, and it's more likely that it will be the outcome if I'm involved in trying.
Right. Well,
Make
there's something to be said for 1,000 drops in the bucket, right?
Exactly,
You do
exactly.
get a slightly fuller bucket.
There's a beautiful line in a wonderful new book that's out, is called All We Can Save, that I really highly recommend for people who don't have a lot of hope or whatever. It's really accessible. It's written by 60 different women,
Oh, I
contributed
love
artwork
this.
and poetry and short essays. And I can't remember who it is, but one of the people wrote a line that remained with me, that was like, we're not going to save the planet or like whatever, reverse climate change by like a few people doing climate action perfectly. We're going to do that by like millions of people doing climate action imperfectly.
I love that.
Yeah. So we do our best, and then we feel our feelings, we accept our feelings, we talk about our feelings, and we do our best again.
I love that.
Over It is proudly sponsored by the Couples Center of the Pioneer Valley, offering therapy and coaching to couples, individuals, and families with relationship issues. Online services are offered 7 days a week. Contact us at 413-570-0067 or at pioneervalleycouplestherapy.com. We also offer private in-person intensives and retreats.
That. You know what a great antidote to ego grief is? Or maybe it's not an antidote. Maybe again, it lives side by side, is clowning.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I say clowning as a verb, as an activity,
Mm-hmm.
I'm alluding to the fact that you also have an alter ego.
I do.
And that is your clown persona. You are part
Margarina
of a
Mashlanka.
clown.
Mhm.
Oh, can you say her name again?
Well, her full name is Margarina Mashlanka. She goes by Margie. Margie Mashlanka.
Yes, Margie.
Margie short for Margarina.
Short for Margarina. Margie is your clown persona. You are part of the clowning community. Is that?
I mean, it's a I don't know. It's a certain type of clown. It's called red-nosed clown. So it's a genre of clown. And yeah, I mean, there's a community of clowns that like my teacher has sort of midwived into existence. Yeah, I would say it's a community.
Now, when you say there's certain genres of clowning, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying I don't know much about this. I mean, I personally have met Margie, and she's at times shown up in my kitchen, and I love her, but I don't know much about clowning. So when you talk about the different genres, and she's a red-nosed clown, like she actually has the big puffy red nose.
Yeah.
Are there? So can you speak to some the genre, like
I mean, there's
other
like
genres?
I don't know if I could name other genres, but like, you know, there are like hospital clowns and there's like circus clowns. And I think, you know, like you can go to clown school and learn like a lot of different styles of clowning. So this is just one like lineage, I guess, that's passed from teacher to teacher. And in red nose clown, you have a red nose.
Yeah.
And that's your mask. That's your clown mask. And the way that my teacher has learned and has passed on is that your clown character emerges from your own body, your own voice, your own experiences. So it's not about slapstick or like acrobatics or jokes. It's about like discovering the clown that's already inside you, who is somehow related to you. It's some aspect of yourself that, you know, comes out. And this clown then goes on to interact with others, and you learn more and more about who this clown is.
Would you say, I mean, there's these, you know, images of the crying clown. I mean, are clowns ultimately born of grief in your estimation?
They're vulnerable. I would say they're very vulnerable because they like everything's like hanging out with a clown. They're always with red nose clown, you're always sharing your reactions with the audience. That's one of the things about it. So like if I'm interacting with another clown and they say something that hurts my feelings, I feel it really hard, and then I turn to the audience and I show them. So the clown is very vulnerable, but they're also very resilient. So like I feel that, I react, and then like the next thing happens. You know, it's like my teacher talks about clowns are always falling down, but they're really low to the ground to begin with.
Which doesn't necessarily mean they're depressed.
No, not at all. I mean, there might be some that are more, they're very vulnerable. There might be some that are more prone to depression than others. Like there's a whole range of you know, like there are anxious clowns. My clown is more of an anxious clown. There are some who are like really pompous and, you know, boss people around. You know, they're different. You can have a higher status and a lower status clown. But yeah.
This is super informative. I mean, would Margie like to make a guest appearance right now on Over It?
Well, let me ask her.
Okay.
Margie, do you wanna...
Yes, I would really, 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 really like to be on your podcast.
Margie, welcome to Over It.
Thank you.
You are the first clown we've ever had on the podcast.
Really?
Or the first like self-identified clown.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you tell me, Margie, I mean, I don't want to presume your age or anything like that.
I'm 40 years old.
Oh, you're 40
Or,
years old.
well, actually 40 years young.
Oh, right, of course. I
Because
mean,
people think I'm still really sexy.
yes, no, you're definitely very appealing.
Thank you.
I, you know, in the vein of this podcast, I
Mhm.
wonder, Margie, could you share a little bit about what you might be over or getting over or have some
Mm,
experience of working towards being over?
over. And really, um, and now I don't know. Over, I don't know.
Maybe you're not over anything, but is there something you're grappling with that you would like to
Oh,
move
very
through?
many things. I'm grappling with many things. Yeah.
Yes. Would you say that that is your sort of your way of being? Is that there's always a lot going on internally for you? You're very complex.
Oh, I'm extremely complex. Yes.
It's
Yes, I am.
Is there one thing you might be able to share with our listeners that has been particularly
I
challenging for
know.
you?
Yeah, I think that it's really important to be yourself and love yourself. And maybe I did not always love myself, but now I really love myself. And I also, yeah, I really love myself. That's
Well,
all.
I really want to love you too, Margie, and you.
But I am a heterosexual woman.
Okay, you're a heterosexual female clown, female identified clown.
Yeah, so I like to make love with men, male
Wh-
clowns.
Do you date other clowns or are you
Yes, yes,
okay?
primarily.
And how is the dating scene among clowns?
Not so great.
Are you primarily looking for another red-nosed clown or are you
Yes,
willing?
but a really handsome one. And
Okay.
very tall and muscular, and also very passionate about the environment. That's very important. And yeah, tall, muscular, passionate about the environment, very handsome with a red nose.
Well, I really want to give you my best wishes in your
Yeah, I
continued
have not
search.
met them yet.
You know, I just want to hold the space that you might one day meet your tall, handsome clown,
Yeah,
and
I'm
you
a
can
little
share
sad.
eco grief and clowning and love of the environment.
Yeah,
And yeah,
I might not meet them because I have yet to meet one that's very handsome and tall and likes the environment.
well, all I can
Maybe
say,
they're out there somewhere. And if you're listening and you know a clown like that, just tell them to write to margiemashlaka@gmail.com.
well, thank you for being part of Over It, Margie.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna summons Hannah back now.
Okay. Hi.
Hi. Oh, it's almost like you went into a trance. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's so important for people to understand that sometimes being in our stiff little adult roles can get really old. And for me, what Margie represents is an ability to kind of shed that stiff adult suit
Mhm.
and let something more childlike, innocent, and magical come through. So
Yeah.
definitely want to thank you, Hannah, for just being the vessel through which Margie comes through.
Oh yeah, and I would definitely, you don't have to be a theater person or anything to try out red nose clowning. You just need a teacher.
You know, I really love this, and I want to encourage our listeners before you maybe go home this evening, stop by the dollar store and see if you can find a red nose. And then you can really just have a good time with the people in your life.
Mhm.
So Hannah, I mean, coming back to just a central theme in our little podcast before we end for today, if you could go back and give some words of wisdom to 20-year-old Hannah, what would you tell her?
Oh Lordy. Oh Lordy. I would say, Hannah, don't worry about what other people think. You don't have to prove yourself. Just pay attention to your intuition and do what really feels right to you. And if you don't know, if you're not sure, just wait. Because I did a lot of pushing myself, you know, and I think I didn't need to do that.
Push,
So,
push, push.
yeah. Like I wasn't sure, and I'd be like, well, then go do this thing. Go to grad school if you're not sure what to do. And then you like waste 2 years in grad school. You know, just like try to listen for what is the most important thing to you and go in that direction. Seems simple, but I think young people you're getting all these messages about what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be proving yourself in all these ways.
Well, and it's sometimes in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond that as women, we come to a resting space within ourselves where we say, I'm going to deeply listen to that inner voice that keeps trying to get my attention, really listen and think about what it might be like to rearrange the landscape of my life to allow a little bit more of my authentic self to come out. And as I look at you sitting in your adorable little art cabin that's precariously balanced on very old wooden stilts, hanging over the precipice of this cliff.
Even more so
the
after
river.
our flooding.
Even more so after our flooding, I just can't help but note that you have really manifested something quite beautiful for yourself.
Precariously beautiful.
Precariously beautiful. And Hannah, I really adore you, and I'm so grateful for the magic you continue to bring into my life and into my son's life.
And you, except for
Thanks.
the sun.
Yes. Thank you so much for being part of Over It.
Thank you, Donna.
And to Margie as well.
I'll let her know.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Control yourself. Don't drink too much. Don't talk too much. Don't look that way. Don't stare at that boy. Don't giggle. Don't wiggle. That's too short. Shackle me.